Welcome to WINS Toronto YouTube channel. WINS Toronto is a community organization started by Hitu HR Solutions, targeted to promoting diversity and equal opportunities in the Canadian workforce. We believe diversity is strength. Our focus is to enable, promote and develop professional skills of immigrants, especially women, as well as others who might be at a disadvantage professionally due to their ethnicity, or cultural background, or country of origin. We provide a platform for such professionals to support each other professionally, and learn from each other. An echo of diverse voices is what WINS Toronto is all about. We welcome everyone to our public events for professional networking, discussions, and development. Follow WINS Toronto to show your support for a diverse and a more inclusive workforce in Canada. In this learning session, WINS Toronto presents a LinkedIn Masterclass by Dean Del Peach. Dean is a senior manager responsible for talent acquisition and diversity strategy at Fix Software. In this session you will learn about the power of your professional personal brand, the keys to creating an optimized LinkedIn profile to be viewed by recruiters, tips and tricks around LinkedIn recruiting and applicant tracking systems. So let's get started.
Thank you, Hitu, and thank you everyone for joining. The first thing I want to say is I'm so impressed by the work of WINS and the work that Hitu does. This is not a conversation that it just came up last week. We've been talking for months now, and I'm just so impressed, and more so, I'm just so happy that all of you are on the call and that you're participating. And I love the fact that we're starting off with an intimate group like this, because then, we really get to share, and, I really get to, even ask you all questions. So I'm very grateful for that. Typically when I do sessions like this, when they're not recorded, is I welcome conversation and chat during the session. But because it's recorded and we're recording it rather, and some people may want to listen to this afterwards, what I'll do is I'm going to go through my slide deck and invite you to ask any questions. Just put it in the chat and Hitu will be managing that. And when we're done with the presentation, then we can go through any of your questions. Awesome. And then finally, for those who have signed up on Eventbrite for this session, I just want to say thank you for supporting the organizations of Black Boys Code and TechSpark. And if you have not signed up through Eventbrite, I encourage you to do so, because the proceeds of this event and next week's event go towards those wonderful organizations doing a great work for people of color in the community. All right, great. Well, let's start. I'm pretty excited to get started. And I'm going to share my screen. Can you all see that, just so I know? Someone give me a thumbs up or say yes, they can see it.
Yes, I can see it.
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Well, we're going to have a LinkedIn Masterclass, and the goal of this class specifically is to help you optimize your LinkedIn profile pages. And that's all we're going to do today. We're not going to talk about sharing content and what that does. We're not going to talk about making connections in this session. That will happen next week. So we have about an hour and a half allocated. I'm going to try to do everything within an hour, but if we go over time, at least we've allocated that time. The second thing I will make mention of is I do not work for LinkedIn, nor am I affiliated with LinkedIn at all. And this class comes from the perspective of me as a recruiter, sharing this information. Also, some of the slides on this deck are proprietary and so for that reason, this deck cannot be shared afterwards. But I do encourage you to take notes or rewatch the video, but I encourage you to take notes while we are going through. All right. So let's start with, first of all, just talking a little bit about the company I work for. So as Hitu mentioned, I'm the Senior Manager of Talent Acquisition for Fix Software. Half of my role deals with recruitment and managing our recruitment team. And then the other half of my role, I'm accountable for our diversity, inclusion, belonging, and equity strategy. And our company, what we do is we're a software development company, a medium-sized company in Toronto, and we build software for the maintenance and asset management industry to help them manage their capital assets better through software. All right. So for today, This is going to be our agenda. Number one, we're going to look at our professional brand. Number two, we're going to look at optimizing your LinkedIn profile. Number three, we'll have our Q&A. And then at the end, we will do a wrap up. So I bring this picture first because this picture is very, very valuable to our discussion. It's a picture of literally just two people playing basketball. But if you notice, there's one person who is playing defense, and there's one person who's playing offense. And the reason why I like showing this picture is because I want to encourage people to understand, especially when you are a job seeker or you're trying to build networks, that you've got to know the position that you're in, and you've got to know yourself and your expertise. It's extremely important to know that, so that when you are and I'll use the term marketing your professional self, that you do it with accuracy and clarity to whoever your audience is going to be. Now, I want to start with this slide here, which is the research behind what we're really talking about. And this is what's called the intelligent career theory. You can feel free and look it up. But what this really talks about, it starts at the top talking about knowing why. And what it does is it looks at workers, but in particular, we're looking at workers who may even come from foreign countries, let's say, to Canada as immigrants. And knowing why deals with the motivation for migration, like why you're leaving your current country to go to another. And then it looks at the motivation to integrate and understanding the labor market. So it's understanding your personal motivation. Then it moves into knowing how. And knowing how, without going through each point, really more so looks like at how your professional experience can be used in the market. So your credentials, your education, plus your work experience, and how you can take that and use it in the market. And then the last section talks about knowing whom. So first you know your motivation, then you know your expertise, and then we go to knowing whom, which talks more so about building what I call your relationship economy or your social capital. So building networks around your expertise in order for you to land to really move forward as an expert in your career. And so I want to talk about that because there's actual research based on what we're discussing, and that is how the career intelligent theory works. Now let's talk about the power of your professional brand. And I'll just quickly read it. It says personal branding is the practice of marketing people and their careers as brands, and it is an ongoing process of developing and maintaining a reputation and impression of an individual, group, or organization. So here's what we're going to do, and I know we're recording, but I still want to do this. Everybody take your microphones off, please. Yep, take your microphones off. And I'm going to ask you a question. Okay? When I say the words, just do it, what comes to mind?
Nike.
Nike.
Right. Wow. Okay. And astound, now you can put back on your microphones. That's what I wanted to challenge first. So why did that come up so quickly for you? The reason is because Nike has done such an amazing job over the year with using these three words to promote their company brand. And it's to the point where I can tell people to take off their microphones, and the first thing that comes out of your mind is Nike when I say the words, just do it. If I was to show you a picture of the check mark that Nike uses, you will probably relate that back to Nike. And it's because now it's been such an association of those three words and that check mark that you know Nike's corporate brand. And so what we're really trying to hone down on is you creating, building, developing your personal and professional brand. And so that's kind of where we're leading to. Let's look at branding for a minute in a little bit deeper context. So when we look at brand, the first area we want to look at is identifying ourselves. So, your personal brand needs to link to your passions, your beliefs, your skills, and your experiences, and you need to be able to harness what your unique selling point is. When we look at establishing your goals, I think everyone on this call should really write down where do you want to see yourself? Where do you want to position yourself in the market over the next 2, 3, 5 years? You hear those things about goal setting, but I'm telling you, you can look at the research that the people that write down their goals are more likely to achieve them. And so I want to encourage you to do that. Number 3, we look at establishing our online presence. And for today's discussion, LinkedIn is going to be our focus, but that's what we look at. We look at establishing our online presence. Number 4, we consider networking to engage, and we're going to talk more about that next week. Also, number 5, the development of your elevator pitch when you're networking. We'll talk about that next week as well. And then the 6th thing is it's so good to have some colleagues, such as this network. WINS is a fantastic network where you can have people you can be accountable to and get feedback on things like your LinkedIn profile, your resume, and things of that nature. So, establish these are some key identifying points to really, really establish your personal brand. All right, I'm gonna go forward. So now let's look more at your profile and your story. All right. Now I'm going to just quickly give you a little bit of understanding here as to what I mean by this. So I'm going to stop sharing for 1 minute. And I'm going to bring up my LinkedIn profile. All right, can you see my profile, everyone? Okay. Yes?
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, so this is my LinkedIn profile, and I don't necessarily want to show you my actual profile. What I want to show you is what I call the back end of LinkedIn, which many of you do not have access to, okay? And this here is what we call the back end of LinkedIn. Just give it a moment there. It wants to freeze on me today. Let's try that again. Called the back. This is what we call the back end of LinkedIn. And this is the recruiter view that I have where I can find many people's resumes. And when I say many, I really mean all 65 million people on LinkedIn. So for example, if I put Hitu's name, there you go. She comes up, right? As human resources consultant. Wonderful picture, looks great, right? Now let's.
We cannot. Yep. Sorry, we cannot. I cannot see the screen.
So this is the back end of LinkedIn, and this is the view that recruiters have. And so, for example, as I have Hitu's profile up, it's very easy for me just to type in Hitu's name, and I can search, and here we are. I can easily find her. But typically, when recruiters are searching for candidates, they're not really typing in people's names. So they're not saying, here's all the Johns in the world, right? What they typically do is they typically will type a position. So let's say they type in the word software developer. Okay. And here it kind of gives me, these little bracket things here. What it's really doing is allows me to look at all the different types of job titles that might fall under software engineer, which might include software developer. But if you notice a couple of key things here, is if you see here, it tells you how many results came up when I just looked up the word software developer. Now, I don't have time, and no one has time to go through 7.5 million plus resumes. So what we typically do is we will try to narrow down our search. Okay. And so let's say, for example, I click on that. That gives me a bunch of different titles for software engineer, right? And I'll just click off this as a keyword. Okay, I'm now at 8.9 million results. Okay, because it's now incorporated not just software developer, but engineer and all these different other titles. So what I would normally do is I will search within the location I want to search for. So this is all important information. You'll see why in a bit. But now you know that my results have gone to 59,000, right? So then I might look for skills. So for example, I'm going to look for someone who possesses Java. All right? Gives me a list of different Java skills. And now what's happening, okay, is we are continuing to go down and narrow down results. And I can put other things like their school, the year they're graduated, and I can put other keywords that might match that person that I'm looking for. And so the point of why these discussions are important is because LinkedIn has an algorithm. And the algorithm is based on machine learning. And what it does is it targets people's profiles that have maximized, and this is really important, maximized what they need to do in order to get their profile to show up closer to the top. And that is the discussion that we're going to have today. Because you got to think about it. You're competing against another 29,000 people. So the question that we have to ask is, how do we get your profile in front of the most amount of recruiters as possible when you're targeting your job search? And what we're really looking at is how we optimize our LinkedIn profiles. So I am going to pull back up my PowerPoint here. Okay, and so what we want to do is we want to lead in by talking about your profile and your story, because that is what your profile is doing. And so the next few slides talk about 8 different gold factors that LinkedIn considers when it comes to optimizing your profile. And the first one starts with adding a photo. Okay, so some of the stats right there are present as to why it is important to add a photo. And there might be some people here right now, that you're online and you don't have a photo on your profile. But if you really want to maximize your professional brand, it's really important that you have a nice headshot. I even encourage you, have a headshot with a smile, okay? And not to make this funny, but I want to be quite transparent. Professional networking on LinkedIn is like going on a dating app, okay? So if you've ever been on a dating app, you'd understand, okay, that you want to put your best foot forward. And what they say about dating apps is that the best way to get noticed is to have a photo, right? And to have clear summary on your profile of who you are. And I'm telling you, it is the exact same principles coming over to your professional profile. So I want to encourage you, if you don't have a photo on your profile, I encourage you to put a photo. And I encourage you to have a nice headshot with a nice smile, okay? Now, a lot of people have asked, okay, well, I have a picture of myself in my ski gear, or I have a picture of myself climbing the mountain. You know what? And they wonder, is that okay for my LinkedIn profile? So I'm going to give you my honest thoughts on it. There are two types of people on LinkedIn. Number one, you have job seekers. And number two, you have people who are not seeking jobs, but are there to network. And when LinkedIn was originally created in about 2007, 2008, the original purpose of the platform was a networking platform for professionals, similar to Facebook, who had come out in 2005, where it was a social media platform for people. And so it was originally created on that context, but now LinkedIn has morphed into one of the largest job boards in the world. And so with that understanding, if I was on LinkedIn just for networking purposes, it doesn't really matter what you have on your profile, okay? Because you might be in your dream job, you're there for networking purposes, great. But if you're there for job seeking, I'm encouraging you to, do the things necessary as a job seeker, which is have a profile that looks professional. I encourage it to be a headshot, and if you can, give your nicest smile, right? So that you look inviting. Let's go to the next gold factor. So the next gold factor is detailing your work experience. So as you scroll down, you'll notice there's a portion or a part on your LinkedIn profile where you can outline your job experience in greater detail, okay? And so with that said, one of the things that I encourage you to do, you'll notice in the top portion of this person's job profile is they let you know what the company they work for does. Now, many of us have worked for companies where it could be called ABC Group, right? But nobody knows what ABC Group does, right? And the contrast is if you have something like RBC, because most people recognize that Royal Bank is a bank, right? Or TD is a bank. But in the case where someone might not know what your company does, I want to encourage you, have a little quick blurb that's about 2 lines, okay, no more than 3, that tells us what your company does. Because remember, you're a job seeker and you are creating a profile in a way that people can understand who you are as a job seeker, okay? And then here, you'll notice that the content that he put that is written really talks about what the candidate has done, or what the person who's maximizing their profile has done. I grew our software sales business line to over $20 million. So those are what we call power value statements. So the difference between that statement and I work in the sales department, there are two dichotomies. And so it's important to understand that you want to deliver powerful, value-added statements. This individual here put it in a paragraph style. I encourage you maybe to use 3 bullet points. Tell me 3 things about yourself that you did at your current or previous company to add value to the organization.
Sorry,
Okay?
Dean.
Yep, go
Sorry
ahead.
to interrupt. I'm not seeing the paragraph that you're describing now.
Do you see that here?
No, we've just got education, and then it's got the profile picture, current, past education, contact. That's it, and it's brief descriptions. It's not saying the paragraph you're talking about.
So you don't see gold factor number 2?
No.
That's interesting. I am so sorry.
No, it's fine. Just thought to let you know.
Oh, Zoom. Give me a second here. Thank you for letting me know, because I would have literally went on and and no one would have said anything to me. Okay, can you see it now? Do you see that now?
Yes. Okay. We are on Vice President Global Sales.
Thank you so much, Arthi. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, 100%. So this was the paragraph that I was talking about that outlined the person's current workplace. And this is the paragraph that outlines the detailed experience. Okay. And my suggestion to you is a paragraph is fine, but you can also do it in bullet points. So the question is why do you want to detail your work experience and outline these value-added statements? I'm going to tell you why. Because me as a recruiter, I don't have a lot of time when I'm going through and looking through someone's profile. So I've got somewhere between 20 to 30 seconds. So I just want to see quick highlights of what the person has done, right? So immediately when I see that he's grown software sales over 20 million, and I know I'm looking for someone who's grown software sales by at least 10 million, I'm like interested right away. Okay, so it's very important to put that. And if you have questions about that afterwards, we're going to talk more about that. Okay, the next point here, okay, is talking about the industry. So adding your industry is very important. And when I talk about adding the industry, when you add your industry, you want to add either the industry that you're currently working in, or you want to add the industry that you're targeting. So for an example, let's say you are currently in financial services, but you believe your skills are applicable to the insurance industry and you want to get into the insurance industry. Okay, that's what you're targeting. You want your next job to be in the insurance industry. I'm going to encourage you to put the insurance as your industry. Why am I saying that? Because one of the key features of what I showed you on the back end of LinkedIn as a recruiter is I can target people by industry. And if I only want to target people who are in the insurance industry, are looking for work in the insurance industry, if I put insurance, then only profiles in insurance is going to come up. And if you keep your profile industry as financial services, then you won't appear. So I encourage you to do that. Put the industry you're targeting, okay? Or if you want to remain in that industry, keep the same industry. All right. Notice here on the side, members with industry information receive up to 9 times more profile views. And you can read that because remember, the key is as a job seeker, you want to appeal to a recruiter. Let's continue. Next, the next thing is adding skills and getting endorsed. And what I'm going to do is when I'm done the presentation, I'll actually open up a LinkedIn profile so that when we're having our Q&A and you have questions, we can look at specifically someone's LinkedIn profile. But adding skills and endorsements are very, very, very important. And I'm going to explain why. So back in the day, maybe a few years ago, what people used to do, and they still do it now, but what LinkedIn recognized that people do is, let's say I'm a Java software developer. Well, what I would do is I'd put Java software developer about 15 times in my LinkedIn profile, all over the place, in my about section, in my work experience, in my headline, I'd put it everywhere, right? Because in my mind, by putting that keyword, if someone is looking as a recruiter for a Java software developer, my hope is that because I've put it in my profile 15 times that it's going to come up. But what LinkedIn did, okay, is LinkedIn created an algorithm, okay, that it doesn't matter how many times you put Java software developer. And the reason is because I can put that 15 times, even though maybe I'm not a Java software developer, right? Because it's my profile. I control what content goes inside. But what LinkedIn recognized is that if someone endorses you for that skill, then that indicates to LinkedIn's algorithm that you actually have that experience. And so that's why it's really important to list your skills that you have on your profile and allow people to endorse you for those skills. Okay, that is really, really, really key. And how do people actually endorse you? Well, people can actually go on your profile and endorse you. So if you want to ask people who know you, can you please endorse me for Java software development? You can do that. Or a lot of times when your profile is, people are actually going on your profile for the first time, LinkedIn actually asks those people, would you like to endorse Arthi for, right? So it's really, really important to, list your skills, and we'll look at that a little bit later, and do your best to get endorsed because LinkedIn's algorithm picks that up, okay? Gold factor number 5, okay? Drafting a compelling summary. So your summary really is just your elevator pitch, okay? And here's an example of a summary here, and I'll just read it. As a sales leader with over 25 years of experience, I'm passionate about connecting customers in solutions that help grow and scale their businesses. My sales organization is focused on delivering excellence, delighting customers, and solving large challenges at scale, okay? And it goes on, so on, and so forth. So I think for me, and here's a suggestion, this is really kind of a cool summary of just outlining who the person is and in general. I also encourage you maybe add 3 or 4 bullet points that outline the value that you've brought to organizations over the years. So not necessarily your last organization, but value that you've brought over the years. So again, if you're a salesperson in this situation, you can say something like, I have created revenues of over $100 million through the sales teams that I've worked with. That's a powerful statement right there, right? Because typically recruiters and hiring managers, when they look at profiles, in their mind, they know what they want in the back of their mind. They want someone who's driven sales by so much. And so it's very, very important that you give some, really punchy, value-added statements that really highlight who you are over your career. Okay? All right, we'll keep going down. Gold factor number 6. Okay? Request a recommendation. All right. So if you're seeking a job seeker, I encourage you to do so. Ask someone who knows you to recommend you, right? Just to say something brief on your behalf. Okay. I don't necessarily know how weighted recommendations are, but what I do know is they are a part of the weight with the algorithm for your name to appear at the top. So you want to, feel free and just ask people, hey, do you mind recommending me? And just to add credibility and validate my skills. Number 7 gold factor. Okay, adding examples of your work. Now, in a lot of cases, this might not be applicable to some people, but in some cases, for example, may be applicable is if you are in a creative position. So if you are a graphic designer, or if you're in media, or if you design websites, a lot of times people like recruiters are always asking for your portfolio, right? So with jobs like that, they want not just your resume, but they want your portfolio. If you're into content writing, maybe add content on your profile that shows your writing ability, right? Because typically that's what people want. So it's an encouragement to do that, and LinkedIn gives a way of adding examples of your work in a dynamic looking fashion. Number 8, adding volunteer experience. Okay, so a lot of times on resumes, people shy away from adding volunteer experiences because they think it's not professional and that they might not want to do that. But I'm telling you this, that more so today, employers are looking at what people are doing outside of work. And I encourage you that if you do volunteer, to add any volunteer experience that you might have. Now, maybe you have like 10 volunteer experiences. Maybe add the most relevant and the most recent. But if, for example, maybe about 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, you sat on like a board of directors for an organization or something to that extent, even though it was 6 years ago, that's very relevant to your professional work. And I encourage you to add that type of volunteer experience as well. Okay, so as I mentioned, employers are starting to really look at volunteer experience, and I think it's something that you can definitely add. All right, so let's not forget about your location, your education, publications, and accomplishments. Let's start with location and why location is important. Now, a lot of people on their profile don't realize that there's a section on your profile where you can add what city you're in, right? Now you can add that you're in the Toronto area and whatnot, but there's a part that some people don't really recognize, and that is your postal code. And a lot of times people will indicate that they're in Toronto, but their postal code is outside of the Toronto area. Now, what I've seen, and I don't know if LinkedIn has changed this yet, but what I've seen is sometimes when looking up people's profiles, you could put every indicator about that person's profile on the search strings in my professional recruiter backend license. But what you'll notice though is their profile still won't come up. And some of the reason for that is because their postal code is indicating that they're in another city outside of Toronto. And so my encouragement to you is list the postal code where you are seeking a job. So if you're seeking a job in Toronto, use a Toronto-based postal code. If you're seeking a job in Kitchener-Waterloo, use a Kitchener-based postal code. If you're seeking a job in Barrie. Use a Barrie based postal code. Okay. So I think that's really, really important to do. All right. Education. Okay. List your educational pursuits, the things that you have done. I encourage you to do that. And if you'd like, maybe list one or two of the relevant courses that you've taken to in regards to your professional personal brand, where you're going. If you have any publications, you want to list that. And also any accomplishments, you want to list that, as they all do play a part in the algorithm that LinkedIn has created. All right, fantastic. Okay, future content, interview prep, and videos. I will talk a little bit more about that when we do go through Q&A, because it's just easier to show. But there are spaces that you can put future content on your profile. There's a section in the job section of LinkedIn where you can actually do an interview prep, where you can look at questions that employers are asking people, and you could even video record yourself and send that video to other people that you know to watch yourself interview. And you can also add videos to your profile as well.
Thank you for joining us for this learning session. Join us again on July 3, 2020 for Part 2 of the LinkedIn Masterclass by Dean. To register, click on the Eventbrite link in the introduction on WINS Toronto's YouTube channel or visit our website. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you next time. Please follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube. This way you can show your support towards creating a more inclusive workforce and promoting equity for people who might have experienced disadvantage professionally due to their ethnicity, or cultural background, or country of origin in Canada. To become a WINS Toronto member, or to sponsor, or donate for our events, please leave a comment below or contact Hitu.